start the session for today. We will start the session. So this is what we have been doing, starting from setting up a project, then we model columns and then beams. Then after that, we looked at slab, and that was the end of the first session. And in today's session, we will start with creating a shell roof, something like this. And we will look at creating segmented column, which would be to create this kind of structures together. So we will be looking at one or two today for the session, and the rest would be like a practice for you that you can do it. And after that, we will start with the architecture layer, for which we will start with the partition wall, and that will be using curtain wall tool, where we will have a frame something of like this, and using which we will be generating two different stud walls, and also looking at the cover for the same, for which we will look at a concept called composites. And after that, we will import a couple of attributes from attribute project file, and we will also look at doors and windows. So this would be today's session. If possible, we will also see some more other things if time permits. So let's start with the session. I hope all of you are ready to learn more tools. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, make sure to use the chat box, and also if you can, do unmute, and you can ask the doubts right away. All right, let's start today's session. So first one is to create this particular shell roof. So we will be looking at a specific tool here called shell tool. And this tool is kind of flexible with respect to creating different type of structure. And there are mainly three type of structure that we created using this shell tool. You also have a roof tool that is mainly looking at a sloping roof in terms of using a single slope or multi-slope structures. But shell tool specifically look at a little bit of curvilinear character. And that is what we are going to see. Now, within shell roof, there are mainly three different typologies of creating a structure. First one, we call it extruded method. So extruded method, just like the term represent, you have a profile. So for example, for us here, it is a profile something like this. So it's a profile like this. And this profile is being extruded in a direction. And that creates the first type, that is the extruded type of shell. So any structure that you see where there is a profile, however it is, if it is straight or if it is curved or if it is combination of the same, if it needs to be extruded and created uniform, we go for this particular tool, shell tool, and within which we will use the extruded method. And there is another method that is revolved method. So revolve method becomes again a little bit more complex, where you may have some kind of a profile, let's say something like this. And this particular profile will be revolved around. So that revolution will have an axis, something like this, and an angle of revolution, which in turn gives us something like a structure like this. So if you have a dome structure is typically a quarter of a circle arc, and that is a profile. And that profile is rotated or revolved around a specific axis. So many different structure, even if you want to create something like a donut. So that is actually more like a circular profile that is being rotated around, and that will give you a structure like this. So one of the fundamental thing that you need to understand is how geometry is being done. And once you get that concept, it will be easy for you to select which method in shell that you can use it to generate your type of roof. There is also one more type, that is ruled method. That is mainly when you have two different profile, it will create like a lofted kind of a structure. So these are three different type of structure that you will see. But for today's training session, we will be looking at this particular extruded profile. So let's get into the software. So this is what we have. So let me just save the file for today. So I'll just go to File, Save As, and let me go to the folder. today's session training 2. I'll make sure the file format is ARCHICAD solo. And today is today 10, right? Yeah. So I was just confirming. 10/7/2025. Yeah, it will be today's session. Today's date, session 2, and I'm going to save. So make sure to have a practice of saving the file however you want, whether it is on a daily basis or even if it's on a weekly basis, depending on how your office demands. You can make sure creating backup that way. Uh, I think Manjana, your pen is active on the screen. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, moving further, this is what we need to create. We need to create an arc structure, more or like this. So when it comes to arc structure, and it is even a custom profile that we have to create, ArchiCAD understand it in this way where you need a plane to work, so a working plane. And on that working plane, you are going to draft, and that is going to be extruded. So that is a language that it works. And like I mentioned, whenever you select any tool or start drafting with the tool, you have to make sure you look at the status bar and see what is the command that is given to you. So let me just select the shell tool here. And so yeah, when you select the shell tool, the first thing that you will get is the tool itself. So you can do a double click and start working on the properties. For example, I'm going for a basic structure here. I need a reinforced concrete structure. I might be looking at something like 150 mm thickness if it is what I'm looking for. And these are the 3 different structures I mentioned. I So first one is the extruded method, second one is the revolve method, and third one is the ruled method. So we will be looking at the first option. We won't be going much into this these dimensions for now. Like I mentioned, here right now, the system will ask you first node of the extrusion vector. So even though I selected the extrusion method, ArchiCAD gives you a little bit more freedom in using something called construction method. For each of them, you have two construction method always. And what it means is that one is a simple method. If the simple method is active, it will take a basic arc and you will extrude that to create something like this vaulted structure. Similar manner, if I'm using a revolve method, that also has a simple structure, which will give you a basic dome structure there. So we need to create something custom. So we have to go for the second option, that is the detail method, where we have to define. Now, software will ask me again here to enter a profile plane, then click on a surface, that is another option, or create a linear edge or a point to generate the plane here. So we have multiple options, but we have one issue that we don't have a curved reference to draft. So shell tool actually demands you to work either on a floor plan or 3D. So you cannot work in section as of now. Probably that will be updated. So we have to work in 3D or plan. So let's try in 3D itself, but we need some kind of a reference. So what I can do is I can go for probably to that export section where I have the profile already drafted. So I'll just increase the opacity of that structure and also I'll bring it front so that I can trace it and probably get it into the 3D. Now, like I mentioned in the first session, all the tools under documents are 2D elements which you cannot see it in 3D. You can see the grid element, but other than that, no other tools are usually visible in the 3D space. So what we will do is we are going to learn another tool called Morph tool. So Morph tool is a little bit more flexible when it comes to 3D modeling. It is not specific to any type, like it's not a wall, it's not a slab, it's not a column or peak. It's just like how you work on a SketchUp. So it's mainly work with the lines and polylines and surfaces and extrusions. So we can make use of that particular tool because even if you draw a line using a morph tool, that will become visible in the 3D. So I'll take the morph tool. I'll go for the first geometry method where there is a polygonal method, and I'm going to draft the outline of the road. So I go till here, click. Then I need a curve now. So I can go for probably the arc 3-point option. And I'll be looking at the last point here. Then I need to define the arc, how it is, and probably somewhere here I will take it. And once you're done, either you can click on the last point or you can click on 0 and then enter. So that will create the line. But you can see it's not visible in the section. That is because it's just a linear element and it is not getting cut. Oh, so that. Yeah. But in 3D, if I go, I'll be able to see that. If it is a solid element, you will be able to see it in section and it should get cut. But here it was not getting cut. That's why you are not able to see it in section. But you have the reference already. Now, if I get back to my floor plan, you will see the same line here. I can use the tab key and press, then I'll be able to select this item. And if I bring back my level 1 reference, so we have the level 1 here, shows trace reference. And I also have to make sure the layer for the roof is also active. So if you remember last session, we turned it off. Also this session, we are going to turn back on so that we will exactly know from where to where the roof sits. Now I can move this line all the way to here and probably make one more on the other side just for the reference. You don't need to do that if you know the length, but what I'm doing is just making sure that I have 2 at the end here. Again, if I have to go further, I still need to create a plane to work with, and all I have is a line. So if I can properly define these 3 points, it will do the job. But even if I create a plane altogether, that also could be another method. So I'll just tell you what exactly that plane is. In my settings, I have turned it off. Probably yours also might be off. If it is off, you can just go to view, in which you have this option called editing plane display. If you turn it on, you will see this blue color space, and this is at 0 level by default. And this is the editing plane that you have. And this particular button that you see is to change the editing plane. So if I click here, I have option to pick a new plane or make it a vertical plane, or I can offset a plane. So there are also a couple of other options as well here, where if I go to the pick a plane option, and probably if I click on the surface of this particular column, it will become parallel to that. But you can see I still need to give an offset value, and I probably may not know what is the offset value here. So I can just go to the plan, use the measure tool that is M, and check. So it's around 600 mm. So in 3D, I could make use of the same tool, use the offset option, and I can probably snap it as well to this. Now you can see I have placed a working plane here. So this is one of the way that we put the working plane, but I'm just showing it to you what exactly the plane is. But if you have the plane ready, now whatever I do here on the space, it will be on that working plane instead. So this is something that most of the 3D, advanced 3D modeling softwares does, this concept of working plane, where you set up the working plane and you start modeling on the top of that. All right, so let's just start with the tool. So I take the shell tool. Now you can see the plane is reset to 0 here, but it demands a profile plane here, for which we have already used a detailed option. And now I need to define a plane. So for which I have already given a definition of a plane by creating a triangular space. So I click on that. Now you can see the plane is back to the space. Now I can do the drafting. So you have to make sure you're clicking on the right point. So let me just do this again. Just click on this point, and you can see I think I'm clicking in the wrong place. So it's okay. Let me make the plane all together here. 1 point, 2 point, and it will ask me for one more point to draw it. That is here. Now first point, second point, and I go for the arc by 3 point option. Same method that I did for the morph drafting. Come back to the last point. Now I can continue, but I should stop exactly at this end point here. You can see there is a change in the cursor. That is a black point here. I click on it again to stop. Then it will ask me to extrude. So it is asking me complete the extrusion vector. So that start from here, go all the way till this point, and I click, and then I have the structure. So let me do that again. I'll delete it. So we don't need it right now. We will do it without that particular plane, or we can start doing from this side also, just so that you will understand what it is. I'll do one thing. I'll just make sure only these 2 elements are visible, so that it might be easy for you to understand. So I selected both, just did a right click and do show selection, which will hide everything and isolate only to these 2 elements. Now I'll go back to the tool, that is the shell tool, extrusion method, detail method. Now I need to define a plane, so for which I can select probably 3 points like this. which will define a plane here. Then it will ask me to draw the polygon. So first point, second point here. Then I change it to arc by 3 point with the pet palette. So make sure you select the right element with the pet palette. So second point, I think I messed it there. Make sure that click on the right point here. Second point, third point, and make sure you define till where you want it. That is here. When you are done, click on the last point again. Then you do extrusion. I'm going to snap it to the other line, and then we have the roof. So you can see I have a flat area, and then I have a continuation that is a curved area. Now, if I want all of the other things to get back, just do a right click and do show all, and whatever is hidden will be visible here. So yeah, so anybody has any doubt so far? Please to ask. Okay, I assume there are no doubts. Okay, let's continue. So that was about the shell roof. If I just wanted to showcase it to you what the revolve method is, same thing. I'll use the revolve method and I have to go for a detail method. And in detail method, I may require a plane to draft. So probably I'll take this side, let's say for now, so that I can work on this particular plane. Now I am going to draft an outline. So let's say something like this and also some kind of an arc. Once it is done, click on the last point. So it stops. So you can see I have a cross section. Now I need to draw the axis. So I'll draw the axis like this. Then it will ask you how much you need to rotate. So probably, let's say instead of 360 degree, I'll go for one cell. Okay, I'll go for 270. You can see, it's sorry, 90 degree it came. The rotation that I did was in the wrong direction. But yeah, you have right now that profile rotated. So in case I want to continue, I have other tools here that I can use it to rotate it all around and create this type of structure. So experiment it with all the other options. It will help you to create many different type of structures for your model. All right, that's about shell roof. Now we are going to the second part, that is the segmented column. So when we need to create something like this, what you're seeing here, there are different options. Very simple option. If you see, I could create a column, what we did before. I could create another column that has the tapering character. And I can use another column that has the typical rectangular character. So all these three things together can create the whole structure. I can also replace this element with a slab also instead of this. So this is one of the method. It's up to you how you want it. But in this method, one issue is they are not connected directly. So when you want to connect them, what we would suggest using is you can go for a segmented column itself. So these segmented columns will give you the control on all these elements separately, but at the same time, they are one single element altogether. So let's go for that. So let's understand how the structure is. So the very normal part, what we have done is that rectangular column itself. Below that, we have this tapering column that is around 1200 in this side, and then whatever the maximum size is that we can maintain it. And below, we have third segment that is going to be the typical rectangle with a smaller thickness. And let's get to ARCHICAD. I'm going to select similar columns first. So those are these three at this point. And I'm going to the settings. And this is what we did not do last session in the segment settings itself. So we went for the single segment. This time we are going for multi-segment. So I just click here to activate. And like I mentioned, I need 3 segments. So I can click on add 2 times. So I get a total of 3 numbers. So these are the 3 segments that we have. And the bottommost, as you know, we need to make it around 1200 by 1200. You can also link this so that it will be connected. And next one is to make sure that height is fixed, and that is around 300 mm. So here, instead of keeping a flexible dimension, we will go for a fixed dimension and tell that this is 300 mm thickness. Next segment, the middle segment, I need to now convert that is to be a tapered type. So instead of a uniform size, we will go for the tapered size, where the base is going to be 1200 by 1200. Top is however it is, we will leave it for now, but the height I need to fix it to 300. Now that is going to define the structure in that composite type or the segmented type. You can also change material of each of the type of elements that you have. Even if you want to put an I section on the top and a plate here below, and then you want to keep the foundation. So you could use the same same segmented column option and multiple segments and give the correct properties from here for each of them. So that will do the job. Now, when I give OK, you will be able to see those properties that are added. So if I want it for this, I would always suggest select of similar property, including height and positions and everything. That would be ideal. Sometimes what happens is when we select like this, I mean, not in every cases, if a similar property change, then the whole property will be transferred. So I would not suggest doing that, but you can try to understand how these changes are done. So like I mentioned, we go to segment, we add, and whichever needs to be fixed, we will do that first. So this is 300. This is also 300. And this is a tapered one where the base height is 1200. And the bottommost one again, 1200. And when you see that, they have the similar pop. So you can do for the rest of them as well. So that will help you to finalize the model. But I hope you understood how to make use of this segmented column. There are many other things also. Instead of me going to the settings, I could use this edit button. And if I go to edit button, now everything else will be grayed out and I can work specifically on this item. So now if I want to add an extra segment, I could add from the exterior side first, like clicking on the blue line, and then I can place where exactly that segment section should be. Then in the edit button, I can go and start making use of these properties here. So let's say I want to have some kind of a sloping character here, and I want the material to change to probably brick. So you can see it created this kind of details here. So you can create a lot of interesting structure if you are planning to experiment with this. I encourage you to do it and make sure you experiment and see how this can be used for different purposes. And if you just go to the favorite button that is next to the column, if you click on the arrow button, you can see many other typologies here. So if I want something like this, you can see it's the same logic. 3 segments where one is tapered, one is flat, and one is this. You can also make sure some dimensions are flexible and some dimensions are changeable. So where you can see wherever it is changed, that can be stretched, but the other ones remains constant. If the other one's also flexible, they will all change proportionally. So there are a lot of options like that. Make sure to experiment. It goes the same. It is the same with the beam also. So if I go to the settings of the beam or the favorite itself, you can see different type of things that has been created. One of them is this precast roof beam is one of them. There is also precast concrete beam. If I take these are favorites that is already created with the settings. You'll be able to see something like this, where if I select this item, it's actually 3 segments here. Let me just turn off the editing plane. So you have 2 segments on the side and 1 segment in the center. That's it. It's very simple. Only in the properties, if you check, what you're going to see is those 2 ends are having fixed dimension of 200, but in the center, you are having a variable length. So that is why when I was stretching, only the center part was stretching and the end was remaining in the same direction. Another ones, if I show it to you, that is this one. You can see this is another type altogether. So it's using a complex profile of something of sort like this. And it is varying the dimensions across in 2 different segments. So you can see I have 2 different segments here. All right, so a lot of things can be done using the segmented column concept. So Anybody has any doubt, please to ask now. Otherwise, we will move ahead. Are you all there in the meeting? Or did you understand? Please do respond. Okay, thank you. Hope you understood. All right. So I'm still wondering why nobody is asking what to do with these beams and what to do with this column. So till I get that question, we will continue with the session. Then we will solve that issue. So yeah. So let's move to the next part. That is architectural model. For this, what we are going to do is this would be the output. I mean, approximately this would be the output for today's session. But if you continue with the practice, you will be able to complete whatever you're seeing right now as part of today's session. So we'll start with this, that is creating a partition wall. So for this partition wall, uh, what is going to happen is there would be a fixed pattern, and that pattern is something like this. And that is getting replicated, as you can see. There is one more here that has been deleted so far, but the concept is the same. And whatever is left over at that extra dimension, it is going to be replaced by that extra one piece of whatever the dimensions. So this is the concept of curtain wall. So you have a pattern, and that pattern is actually called a scheme. And that scheme right now is given to you in the presentation, that is 900 by 2100, just one single element. You can also have different type of pattern where I can also add an extra element here, and that becomes another pattern altogether, where this will have, one more piece here, and that would be 450 and 450. So this is the scheme. Scheme means a pattern. So this would be the starting part of understanding what a curtain wall in ARCHICAD. Second part is about the settings. So settings of elements. So when it comes to understanding a curtain wall, it consists of couple of things. One I mentioned, it is the scheme itself. The second part is all about the elements, and the elements include one is frame. So what you're seeing right now in this is all about frame. There is also one more element that is actually panel. So for this particular segment, we are not dealing with the panel, but the coming facade part, we will be looking at the panel. But altogether, when you see, you have something called panel, you have something called the frame, and then you have something called the scheme. There is also some accessories and things, but those becomes later. But right now, we will be focusing on this specific element. Now, if I again break it down, the one part of it, that is a frame part. So let's just understand this one. So when you look at this specific element, which is there on the right side, I have an outline, and that outline is here. So this particular outline of the whole element is actually called a boundary frame, because it is bounding the whole element, just like the word suggests. Then you have certain vertical elements, and then you also have some horizontal elements. Usually, vertical elements can be called mullions in the default element, and the horizontal elements can be called transoms. So that is just a terminology that is there by default. But by any chance, if you want to uh, add something extra, let's say a diagonal frame, that becomes another typology altogether. So when you work with ARCHICAD, you can create n number of types with respect to the frames and also panels as well. But right now, what we need is we need just one type of frame altogether. And that one type of frame is assigned to the frame here and the frame here as well. And that will be used. So I was talking about the boundary frame, booleans, and transoms. There is also one more type, that is when it comes to, let's say in plan, you have a couple of frames here. So this becomes the mullions and transients and all the other types. And the end ones will be the boundary frame altogether. But this one which is there wherever there is a turning, these pieces are called corner corner frames. So wherever there is a corner, that becomes a corner frame. Then you have boundary frame, you have mullions, and we have transits. So let's look at it in software where you will understand it much better. But let's just keep the dimensions ready. So the scheme is going to be 900 by 200, 2100. And then the frame size is going to be around this. And it's a box, plain box section. Let's get back. We will go to level -1. And we will also activate level -1 drawing. So I think we may have to bring in the architectural drawing for this, and that will be in the session 2. So one of the drawing is for the level -1 architectural layer. So if you remember, we create a new worksheet. We're going to bring it here. If you remember, the method that we did was to use this particular grid point to mark. Here. Now I need this to bring that particular drawing here. So I'll just do a right click. I hope you guys tried this one already and you already know how it works. So I'll just show a trace reference and showcase it to you. So this is what our focus right now. So we have to create this particular partition here, here, and here. So for that, we will be looking at 2 of them, here and here. You can continue with the rest. And these are the elements here. So let's get to the curtain wall tool. So I'll do a double click. That will open the curtain wall tool here. And from which we will go to the scheme. That is to set up the scheme first. Couple of settings are there in the main settings. I'll come back to it after. So as you know that right now we have many different segments here. So we have one here, one here, and one here. So totally 6 segments. But all I need is just one. So what I need to do is I need to clear it. So whatever dimensions you see here, like A and B, that is the same as this A and B here. In the same manner, 1, 2, 3, they are represented on the right side, or left side here as 1, 2, 3. So this is how it is being matched. And if you want to change it, you have all the settings here. First thing, we just need only vertic 1 for the vertical side. So we need to remove B. So I'll do a minus. And right now it is 900. We will go with that. And in the same way, in the height also, I need to change. So I'll do minus, which will give you only 1 at the end. And the height is going to be 2100. And then we have something like this. But technically, it's not matching with the reference that we have because these two are almost the same type. But we don't have it here yet. That is because we have to now create those typology and start assigning these elements here. We will get into that. But before that, one last element to cover here, that is the sizes. So there are 3 options when it comes to the dimensions that we see. One is fixed sizes. So let's consider you are doing facade paneling and you may have fixed sizes of panels that you need to place. So at that time, we go for fixed sizes and put the dimension. So that if anything is smaller, it will be a cut piece. Anything is bigger, it will try to put that particular pattern in that, and whatever is extra will be used as a cut element. There are cases where you just worry about the division and not the size at all. So that time you can go for the best division where it will approximately do division from the start to end, depending on the dimension that you're giving. It will be little less or little more. And finally, you have number of division. That will be like, let's say you have A to B, point A to B. You want to create a curtain wall. I want 10 division. So you create the number of division right there. So that time you won't be able to give the dimension of that particular part. So I go for fixed sizes for both of them. That would do the job. Next one, I go to the settings of frame where I need to define that particular type. So you can see there is already something called corner frame and boundary frame, which I told you. These are already there, which we need to change the settings. It will be fixed for all the types. We just have to change the property. But Mullion and transom can be removed from the library because it's something that is added into the default template. I want a new type means I can just click on the add button, click on new to give it a type name. So first one, okay, I am going to create a partition panel. So I'm just going to name it as partition panel. I would encourage you to have a system of naming things. Not don't do it randomly like what I'm doing it here. If you have a proper system, when it comes to taking the quantities of these elements, it becomes really easy for you to identify what exactly it is and where exactly it is. So make sure to have a proper naming system. Parallelly, also maintain an Excel file or Google Sheet where you can fill whatever you're doing here as part of an information. So whenever somebody goes into your project, they will get to know what you have done step by step in a project. So these kind of practices are always good. Make sure to do that. So that is a naming. So you can see I have a panel here called the partition panel. And here I can select the type. So this is where the settings are. So I go to the type here where I have a built-in frame, which looks like this. I have a but glaze frame, built-in but glaze frame, and that is looking something like this. That is something that I wanted as well for the model. But you can also look for many other type, and there are also custom options which you can bring it in. For now, we won't be going through much, but yeah, let's go with this one. And now the dimension that I need to see is 120 and 80 here. So let me just put the dimension. So this 120, 120 and 80. Yeah. And here I have 510. So this particular dimension, what you're seeing here, that 5 mm is the gap from the center. So if you have to put the panel inserted into this, you can just put the dimension. But anyway, we will not have a panel, which we don't need to worry about. Now that is a partition panel that we have created. Now if I go down, I can change the material. Why now it is aluminum. Let's say I'm making it with wood. So I could go from the library and create assign that plywood element. So I just put plywood. So let me just put timber structure. So you can search for the right material and assign it. And that is about I named it as partition panel. So let me name it as partition frame. So you can see I made a mistake. Nobody noticed. Now, let me go to the panel part. So panel is the next one. That is the surface or the horizontal or planar elements, I would say. Here also I have something called main panel and distinct panel. So for this particular type, you don't need to put a panel. We are going to make it an empty one. So we don't need to come here and do it. But later we will be addressing this topic. So let me come back to scheme. But these are still not changed. The reason is that we just created these types for the frames, but we have not assigned it. And that assignment happens in this scheme setting itself. So if I just click on this one, that is going to be the transfer frame. And I'm going to change that from this particular area to partition frame. Same thing, the right side also, I'm just going to change to partition frame. So now these two elements are going to be partition frame. And center, you have a distinct panel. By default, you can see it's already shown here, which I need to change to deleted panel because I don't need a panel in that area. Now there is something I did not do it. That was to change the corner frame and boundary frame to the same property of this. Instead of going to the setting of this and changing, this also allows me to just do a right click and copy the partition frame properties and paste it into this so that they will also share the same properties here. So it makes your life easier. You can cross-check it by going through and see whether the properties are correct. Boolean and transform anyway, we don't need it right now. So if I need it, I can just remove it as well. Now that is also done. Now we will go all the way back to the main settings. So these individual settings are done. Now I need to give it a height. So if I'm not wrong, it's around 2100 or 2050, 2050, I guess. Later also we can change it. So let me just give it this one only. And this is about the thickness of it. So it is going to consider more like a wall. So whatever the thickness is, you can give it here. So if it is 120, you can just give that dimension. Only the reason is whenever two walls comes together, and if it is within that range, it will consider that it is closed. So these things will matter later for you. So just have a look at these things. But today's session, I'm not going to address all those things in detail. Now, if you remember, when we placed columns and beams, we were looking at some kind of a reference line. So curtain wall is also done using the same method, having a reference line. And that can be defined whether it is through a panel center or corner frame or boundary frame or partition frame face. Because we know the frame here by the reference, I can go for the partition frame face and give it a value of 0. So that means there are no offset, exactly the face will be used. So that would do the reference settings. So I want you to go through different values, different settings, and try placing them different way and try to understand where the reference line is coming and where the object is coming. So those kind of practice are required from your side to understand and learn. And member placement, this is something that I look at as well here. That is 3 options are there, especially on this side, if you see. Inside boundary, center of the boundary, and outside boundary. It is as simple as if you are seeing, let's say you have an outline here in which you need to put a window. So let's consider window here in this case. If I go for inside boundary, what happens is exactly within the range of these things, it is going to place the boundary frame. So it's all about how do you want to place the boundary frame. So this would be ideal for this particular case and even our case also. Now, the other case that we have is looking at center on boundary. If that particular option is used, it will use the reference line as a center and the boundary frame is placed like an offset. And the last one is outside boundary where the frame will be created outside the face. So make sure you select the right setting here. So for our case, I'm going for inside boundary. You don't need to do that if you are properly defining centered on boundary is always the ideal method because center to center distance will always be constant. If I'm using the inside boundary, the first element and second element center to center distance might be different. So I'm going to draft. So you can see the same terminologies are replicated in tools here as well. That is the geometry method where I have single segment and chain method, circular, and many other type. We will go to the last one in today's session itself. So I'll go for this single method. I'll click on first point. I need to make sure I click here in the right place and you can see it's already sitting perfectly because the dimensions are matching. Second one is also perfect. Third one is also perfect. Fourth is perfect. Fifth. And finally last point, and it is going to sit exactly where it is supposed to be. And you can already see they are sitting there. And if I go to 3D, you will see that particular area. I guess, like I mentioned, the height was not 2100. It was 2050. Yeah, okay. So that's the job. But if you notice here, I don't have this center element. So now I'm going one step ahead on the curtain wall tool, that is the edit mode, just like how we edited the column in the composite option or the segmented option. If I select it, you can see that edit button here. So it will be there on the screen. Make sure you find it. Click on that. It will make sure everything else is kind of a faded format, and then now you can focus on this element. Now, if I don't need these 2 elements, I can just select them using Shift and just create. There are also a couple of things like these errors you might see. This can be addressed, which I will be showcasing it to you. Those are actually on a concept called priority. But yeah, mainly that way you can just delete these elements altogether and make sure they're plain. Even though I deleted, there's still one single element overall outside. So yeah. And that particular issue can be addressed by just changing the intersection priority. That is property here. So by increasing them or by reducing them, you will be able to change the property. So before it was joining them in a diagonal format because of equal priority. Just by changing the member that we created on a higher priority, they are going to cut the one with the lower priority. So boundary frames right now has a lower priority. That is why the one that we created, that is a partition partition frames, is cutting the other ones. And on the other hand, you can see these 2 are on a diagonal junction. That is because both are having the same intersection priority. So yeah. So these are some of the methods you can do. I could have done it in 2 different options also. 2 different parts also. But just that this is something that I selected to do it for this particular trend. Now we have one more here, which needs to be done. So we'll go back to the floor plan, same method. But we are going to face an issue and I'll show you how to solve that issue as well. So I'll click here and start. But you can see it's not actually working properly. Even though first and second one is correct, the other one is actually not correct. You can see that in the 3D. And this is what is happening. So the reason is that in this and this one, the concept is the pattern starts from the point that you clicked. And in this case, this is not how I want it. So if you look at it in the 3D, it's actually equally distributed on both the sides. So this is something, some kind of an issue that we might have missed in the initial stage. So that is under scheme. It is the pattern origin. So you can define the pattern origin both in vertical and horizontal way. So for us, it was start with the pattern from the point we click. We are going to change it to from the center of that particular element, start the pattern. So when I use that, now you will see it is equally distributed, just like how we want it here. Only thing that is missing is we have a centerpiece. So for that, again, I will just make this. Go to the edit mode. So it gives you a lot of freedom. So I can select these two and probably do a Control-Shift-3 to make a copy. And whatever the dimension is, I can just move it all the way down and it creates two different segments here. Now, if I delete the center, you can see this is what we want. Same option. So it's equally distributed from both the sides and we just need to delete this option. See, what I did right now and something I want you to keep it in mind is define the properties or the global type for property or the overall properties first itself. Then you go to the edit mode. After you do any type of editing, it will become really difficult for you to get back to what we have done. So I would encourage all of you to practice this as well in the same format where you create the overall settings first, just like how I showed it to you. Once you're fine with how it is placed, how the pattern is distributed, then you can start doing the editing option. If I want, I can add additional things also. So I could just go to edit mode and go to the settings of the frame and probably select something that I created. So here you can see there are different types already, and I'm going to use the partition frame. Let's say I want to draw one. So I could draw one here. So now that is going to be placed depending on how we are drawing. And that is going to be added as a shape. So you can see there is a lot of options when it comes to creating curtain wall or the freedom method. I could do this pattern also, but here I did not have a pattern to replicate other than the major frame. So I did that and later I did the editing option. So if anybody has any doubts so far, if to please ask. Otherwise, we will move to the next part that is creating the partition code. All right. From the response, I believe all of you are understanding everything. All right. So we will now give a cover to this particular partition wall. And that is by using a wall tool itself. And we will look at two different options. One is the basic option and non-ideal option. Second one is the best option. That is by creating a composite. Yeah, so let's go back to plan. And now you can see that we have the partition here and then we need to cover it. So I could simply actually use a wall tool. So now wall tool is going to be very simple, where home story is the base, just like the column where I say it is from level 1 and where it is going to end level 0. Level 0. And then what is the offset value? If you have an offset value, let's say minus 450 is the offset value. So I give that particular wall. So you can see it is already showing 2050 as the wall height. You can go all the way till the upper level also. It will automatically cut. But if I want it, I can approach it this way. And I'm going for a basic structure instead of composite, but we'll get back to composite all that later. And I'm going to just check for plaster. I'll go for gypsum plasterboard waterproof for now. And I need to give a thickness to this particular wall. And by going here, I give 0.15. Don't remember what exactly the thickness is. I think it is 10 mm or 15 mm. So I'll give OK. I'll just give measure it. Oh, it's 15. So I can just go back to the settings and change it to 15 thickness. Now reference line, you can see many of the terminologies are becoming repetitive. So it becomes easy for you now to understand. To draw the wall, I can either look at the outside face or center or inside face. I know all three, I mean all two, not the center. So I'll go for outside face and click on this point and see, yeah, the direction is also correct. It is placing in the right way. And second one, I'll go from here and cover it all. So this does the job. No issue. It did the cover. There is no issue for us. But I would say this is not the right way of doing it. Only the reason is if by any chance, if I need to rework on these two plaster options, the material, I need to assign it together, not separately. So what I can do is I can create something called a composite. So what happens in composite is it is like a layers of material. So you may have, just like what we want, a plaster layer. Then probably you may have, for us it is going to be cavity, but you can also give it something like a brick wall and then again a plaster or something. So this become three different layers. So instead of going for that basic one layer separately as two different elements, I could go for composite where I have all these three layers are there together. So that is what actually happening here, where I have 15 of a gypsum plaster board on the outside. So that is here outside. And you're going all the way to inside here. And you have a 120 thick air space that is like a cavity. And then you have again 15 that is the again gypsum board plaster. So three layers together. And there are also other properties where you define what is a type. So here you will have three options. One would be to tell whether it is a core of the wall, whether it is a finish of the wall, or neither of them. So we call it other in ARCHICAD. For some reason, that is a name that is being given. So these are the ways we give a type. Similar with thickness, which line you have to take, but the line type we will be addressing in the coming session. And this is the layer separation. So like this, we are going to create one. So that would be the first attribute. What I'm going to do is I'll go to 3D and I'll just delete these two because we don't need this anymore. And let's go to options, element attributes. So if you remember, first day we looked at setting up some project information. So those are under options. So one of the things like building material or layers or lines or fields or textures and all these things, they are also part of your element attribute. So they are all under options. So we go to options, element attributes, and right now we are working on the composites. So I'll click on composites and this is what you're going to see. So these settings, you might see very similar things in the coming other attributes also. So you have two parts. One is this left side where you have a library. So this is like a library of elements where it is organized into folders, and that is by using this particular option. This is the folder view in which I see two folders, exterior and interior. Right now, interior is selected, and within that folder, you have these many number of types of composite. So similar way, if I click on the option here, list view, it is going to show everything else together. So if you want to organize your projects and files, I would suggest you go for the folder view and make sure you add everything here. So there is already something called start partition in our composite for interior, and that is being assigned to a wall here. So that is a word that you can see that is used with, means where all you want to use the composite. So right now it is activated for wall. I can also activate the same for slab or roof or shell or all of them also. We have multiple options here to work. So let me just take the existing one, start partition. So there is already a gypsum plaster board. I'll change it to just the waterproof one. We will look at creating materials in the coming session, but let's work with the one we have. So we have airspace frame here. You also have airspace as well. So let's just go with what is there. And I'll keep that this is the core with a thickness of 120, and this will be having a thickness of 15. Right. So that will give you the composite ready. If you want to add something, you can make use of the insert skin option. If you want to remove something, you can do that here. So if I just do insert skin, it will add an extra layer here and I can do a different property altogether. So this is the way that we work, and I'll give it OK. Now, when I go to the settings of the wall, so I'm going to select the wall tool. Just do a double click, it will select the wall tool. Now I'm going to select the composite. And from the library, I'll go for the interior strut partition, give OK. Now I just have to draft. So in drafting, again, I'll just go back to the settings to talk about the reference line. Because we have selected a composite, instead of just the outside, center, inside, we also have core outside, core center, core inside. So when we have a composite like what we created, where you have a plaster, then we have the cavity, and then we have again a plaster, we define that is different then. This particular area is the core, and these two are finishes. So system will understand the fact that this particular line here is the face of the core. This particular line is the face of the core. So inside and outside, depending on how we have drafted. And also it will understand this is the center of the core. And on the other hand, system also knows that this is the face because it's the outside, and this is the face of the inside. So you'll get multiple options for the line. So what I'm going to select here is, because I know all the options in this, I could just go for the core outside instead of face itself. And then I can draft from here, because this is right now the core part where the cavity is. And I can draft it from here to here. Now when I go to 3D, you may see that it is still the same, but the property difference is that when I just select it in 3D, it's just one element. If I keep it to the side, you can see that. Now, if I need to edit it, I could go to right click and do edit selected composite. This option is also there. Instead of air space frame, I could just put air space itself, and then that is going to be just a cavity instead of having some kind of a powder. So if you want to see that clearly, I'm going to introduce one other tool, and that is going to be 3D cutaway, which is located here. If I activate that, it will show in blue, and also it will show a scissor symbol on the side. You can click on it and drag, and it will create a cut section in the 3D. Now I can see the frame, the detail of all these elements from here, and I can inspect it out. So those who are familiar with other tools, you may see like a section box or something like that. But here the term is 3D cutaway. We can take it from any side and then can place it. There are many other properties available for this. So I can do a right click, I can delete it, I can rotate it, I can delete all of them together or create a custom one altogether. There are many options. Let me just delete all of them. Right. All right, so I hope you understood the composite here. Anybody has any doubt regarding that? Please do ask.